Welcome to the first episode of BCS Talks. I'm Charlie,
I'm Hedy.
My name is Bilal.
and nice to meet you. And I am the host of this series of podcast, and I want to start by introducing myself a little bit. So my name is Charlie, and I am the vice president of BCS SA, the student club for BCS program. BCS program is a program in UBC where students pursue their second degree in computer science. In other words, people had a degree previously from different background, and they join us at UBC to explore the new career in computer science. Yeah, and I have Hedy and Bilal here, and Bilal is the president of the club, and Hedy is the social coordinator. We worked together for almost a year now, and I really enjoyed the work with them. And we host this series of podcasts to give upcoming BCS students a taste of the new program, how the school life is like for the first year, and what can we do after we graduate this program. And we feel like it's a good idea to start by, start with the co-executive team of this club and, share our experience for the first year. How about we start by introducing why we come to BCS first? I want to pass the mic to Bilal first. He had a really interesting story before he come to BCS.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Bilal, and I am the president of the BCS Club. And so you'll know more about what we do in a few minutes. But for now, my story as to how I got into the program. So when I first started my first undergrad degree, I was studying at University of Toronto. And at the time, I was med school bound. So I did all that wonderful med school like application stuff. I did research. I wrote the MCATs. I did volunteer work, community work. I did everything I could. And then once I graduated, I started applying. And I got rejections and rejections and rejections. And I was like, okay, you know what? I don't think this is panning out for me. Meanwhile, I used to have this old childhood friend who I hadn't spoken to for I think about 7 years. And then when the pandemic hit, he reached out to me, just to reconnect and everything. And as I was talking to him, as I was interacting with him, I noticed that the person I knew as we kind of left high school and then who reached out and connected with me, like it was a completely different person. The way he spoke, the way he was confident, the way he would think about situations, how he would plan and everything. And I was very impressed with how much he had matured and grown up. And I kept trying to figure out what was it that he did? Was it something specific? And he studied computer sciences in first degree. He was a software engineer. And then as we spoke more and more, he's like, yeah, no, this is what happens with me, you start to see problems differently. You start to think very methodically and logically. And I was quite impressed. I was like, oh, if this is what this degree can do, I was like, I would love to develop these skill sets. So I started thinking okay, med school isn't working out. I need to find another opportunity, another way for me to, have a fulfilling career. And so I started looking at these programs that exist. And I came across a couple in Canada that are considered shorter degree programs. So there was UBC, Windsor has one, and then there was some third university. SFU, I think they might have a second degree program as well.
Yeah, I think I've heard about that too.
And so, but I got into Windsor. But I went through Windsor, I checked out the school, and I was like, this doesn't really seem like a very wholesome school to be at. It gave me it was quite questionable, because not even a two-year degree, they had a one-year degree BCS program that you could get.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the classes were 6 weeks long,
Okay.
and you would just power through the curriculum, and I was like, no way, this is a bit. And then luckily I got into UBC, and then they have the co-op program, they have, it's a great school, get to live on the West Coast, So I thought, this might be where my next life journey is going to go through, is through the Vancouver and through the BCS program.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
Yeah. Here we
Very
are in the
cool.
same room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very insightful.
Yeah. So basically, Bilal came from a medical background, and after trying very hard to find a career in as a doctor, he thinks it's better to get started with computer science because I agree with you. Like when you talk to your friends, the way he thinks is like very methodologically, it's because of the debug experience we all experience these days. Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely very, very interesting. I also learned a lot about the programming and like thinking about all the possible outcomes of programs. Yeah, and Hedy on the other hand, she is from also kind of medical background, right? Would you call
Yeah.
cognitive? You are in cognitive systems, right?
Not really cognitive systems. So for me, I did my first degree at U of T in 2016. And I did it in neuroscience. And I'm going to be honest, like, from my first year, I knew I didn't want to do it. But the problem is I didn't know anything else I wanted to do. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that and are possibly in a very similar boat where it's like, you know, I mean, I feel like if I could go back, I would possibly be like, girl, get out of there. Like, why are you staying in this degree if you don't like it? But at the time, with where my mental state was at and like what was going on in my life, I was just like, you know what, let me just power through and get this degree. And maybe the next year I'll like the courses more. Maybe the next year I'll like the courses more. And then it turned out by the fourth year that we never liked the courses. So the problem is I was in so deep and I was like, you know what, whatever, let's see what happens. And I was in the mindset of like, I'll just get a job and I'll make money and I'll do what I want, what I enjoy, like on my off time, like who cares? But every time I would go to a like networking event for science, I would cry. And I'm not even exaggerating. My poor father had to console me because I would bawl my eyes out because I was like, I don't like this. Like, I really don't like this. And he was the one that was trying to tell me, like, you know what? Okay, you don't like it, then pick something else. And I had already graduated. Like, I already had my degree. I'd already tried to find jobs, but I knew I didn't like labs because I had labs in my undergrad and I literally hated every single one. And it wasn't like, you know, this isn't great, but at least I like other things. I hated every part of it. And, you know, again, at the time, I didn't think to switch. But what kind of made me switch into this degree was I had a friend in my last degree who took computer science as an elective. And she took it and was like, you know what, if it's too hard and I get a bad mark, I'm just going to drop it. And I'm pretty sure she got like a 20 on the midterm, like a 20%. But I remember watching what she got to make, like as a project or like as practice for the midterm. And it was this little like rocket ship game where you get to shoot asteroids. And I was like, that is so freaking cool. Like, what the heck? And I didn't even know that our high school had computer science classes. I've been a lover of video games since I was a kid. I had the Game Boy Advance, if you know, you know. And I was like, you know what? Well, I don't like life sciences. I don't like neuroscience. I really don't want to go to med school. I never wanted to go to med school. So I started to learn to code on my own after a year after I graduated to see, like, do I actually like this? And I really loved it. I made some games. I watched YouTube tutorials. Like, I did what a lot of people do, which is Harvard CS50 course, so I could get like an idea of what a university level computer science course looked like, and I loved it. So I applied to BCS, and it was a very long waiting process, and I had a crazy admission story. But in the end, I did make it in. And yeah, it's been super fun. I've been loving it. It's definitely a crazy adjustment that you have to make that I haven't even finished making yet, but I think it's completely normal. But I will say that I am definitely enjoying my time here about 10,000 times more than in my last degree. So if you're out there and you're like, I freaking hate my life, like I don't like what I'm doing, and you're like, but I don't have the time or the money to switch right now, it's okay. Like, you actually need a degree to come into this program. So if you want to power through, finish your degree. Like my dad always said, education is never a bad thing. You are never wasting time getting an education. So, you know, just do what you got to do. And if you find out after you graduate or however many years down the line that you actually really like comp sci, join us here.
Join us here. The weather is good.
I forgot to mention, I'm the social coordinator.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Yes, I'm the social coordinator. Maybe you can tell because I got good personality.
Yeah, she's really social, right?
I love it. I get to hold events that gets the BCS people together. We've done kind of fun things like there's a restaurant at UBC called The Gallery where you can go and have drinks. But we've also done things that are purely self-indulgent. Like I have origami nights and we have our own lounge area where we can study. And it's now, I think, covered almost from like top to toe in origami. And we also had some fun like Jackbox game nights where we booked out a room and everybody got to come and play Jackbox games. So it's really fun. Like I love getting all of us together and getting to know each other. And because honestly, I think one of the biggest attractions of BCS is how strong of a community we have and how much we're here to help each other. And yeah, I'd love to help keep that up.
Yeah. And I think you also forgot to mention the event that's going to take place tomorrow that you organized.
Oh, yes. Well, tomorrow I'll be hosting just a badminton drop-in. I'm not a big sports person, but I do like badminton, and I thought, you know what, we'll give it a gander. We'll see how it is. And the worst case, if the badminton is too busy, because apparently there can be like crazy wait times, they also have volleyball and basketball next door. So we'll go play something. Physical health is important, you guys. We sit behind the computer all the time. Make sure you stretch because I'm 25 and my back hurts. So.
Oh yeah, I freaking pinched a nerve in this program and I was out for like a month. So we'll get more into being healthy and trying to maintain like what you should do throughout the semester.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to hear more about Charlie's life as well.
Yeah. So as you might figure it out, everyone before coming to BCS has like a very interesting story for them to switch into the tech career. And, I just learned from Hedy that she actually came out of a toxic relationship with her previous degree. And now he's going into this new relationship with this new program. And this program is treating her super well now. Yeah, for me, I have a little pity not coming to computer science earlier because that's what I wanted to do when I was choosing my bachelor's major. But my bachelor was in China, and for me to get into a major that I actually want to go to, it takes certain grade to get in. Basically, in other words, it's kind of competitive, and I didn't make it the first time. Then, I just focused on my previous major, which is food science. I did my 4 years of bachelor's degree in China. Then I moved to Canada, and I pursued my master's degree at McGill University in Montreal, the city I'm still in love with. And I really had a good time there. And after graduation, I worked for a few years. And when I was working, the pandemic hit. And that's a time when everyone sit back and take a look at their life and see, do they really want to live the life they want? And that happened to me too. Interestingly, I have never worked one day remotely, even during the pandemic. I actually bought my first car during the pandemic. It's like a life-changing moment, but that's just to help me to get to work in person. And the reason is that, the food industry is very essential, and we will consider the essential workers. And during the pandemic, the food business went up so much that every food factory has like a lot of orders, including my food factory. And everyone is working overtime to meet the demands. And this is really exhausting. And one day my colleague, he decided he's fed up and he quit the job suddenly. And as a result, the rest of us has to cover his part of responsibilities. And 2 hours later, we realized why he quit his job. Because he was entering numbers and doing the data analysis manually. It's a crazy amount of work. And I was surprised that, even in 2020, we still have this kind of workflow. So I decided that we can't do this anymore. And I spent some time after work to look into Microsoft macros, just to write some script to automate the workflow. In the beginning, it's super hard. I keep running into different bugs, and I can't even understand how the syntax works. But after a month of fail and trial and error, I start to, get something. And a month later, I get the first macro that enters data automatically. And I was over the moon. I was so happy, and I still remember that moment, and I realized that's the power of computer science, the power of coding that can do to the food industry. Food industry is an industry that is heavily regulated, and at the meantime, the margin of profit is kind of narrow. So in general, food industries are kind of reluctant to adopt new technologies. And another part of the reason is food industry is not like this, how do I say, well established. Like not everyone is putting their attention to the food industry. So like not a lot of people will dedicate their time and resource to develop things that is dedicated to food industry. But as a food scientist, I want to help my industry to have a better life, have an easier life. And I can't do that without knowing how to do code myself. So that's why I decided to come to BCS.
Nice.
Yes.
Amazing.
We have a couple of questions for you. So when you came from China to Montreal, could you speak French?
No, not at all.
But now you can.
Yeah, no, I
So
can.
you picked up French in like a couple of years.
Yeah, it's how do I say it? So the major motivation for me to learn French
Yeah.
is for immigration.
Okay.
So like it's part of the requirement for you to get a PR application in Quebec.
Yeah.
And when I just freshly graduated McGill, I couldn't speak one word of French. But like I was also in the period of looking for jobs, so
Yes.
I was thinking, oh, why don't I just pick up French and get this thing done at the same time? So while I was looking for jobs, I was taking like full-time courses.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
And slowly I started to practice, and it works out for me. And I started to make friends who speaks only French, and that really helps me a lot in terms of practicing.
Immersion is the way.
And it's funny how like with the CS degree, like okay, we learn coding languages, but then oftentimes people have this natural inclination towards other languages. Like I know you're taking a foreign language as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. I personally I like learning languages. I just think they're fun. I mainly like learning languages because I love to yap. I'm a talker, as you may be able to tell. But I think it teaches you a lot of really important skills, like maybe more technical in the sense where, like language learning, there's so many components to it. There is, but I think it can apply probably to coding too, because there's like just learning like the alphabet, which you could equivalent to the syntax of a language, like literally like how do you just type this out. But then there's the part where you actually need to use this language, but there's different ways you use it. There's speaking, there's writing, there's reading, and every single one of these is different, and the way you practice them is all different. And I feel like with coding it's still really similar, because the way that maybe you would practice coding for a course versus for like making your own project versus having to practice lead code for technical interviews, those are all really, really different. And being able to I think be okay with being bad, which is something that you must be okay with when learning a spoken language. Like most people will just be bad at it in the beginning because obviously you don't speak this language. It's a very hard skill to be okay with, i.e. being bad at something. It's something I still struggle with. But I think it helps with when you're doing programming and you're doing leak code and you're like, I actually feel like the dumbest person alive. You'll be like, well, you know what? I feel like probably so does everyone. So it's just a skill that you need to keep doing, and you have to keep practicing. And the more you do it, you won't even notice that it's been a month, and suddenly like you try to go back and do an easier problem and you're like, oh my gosh, like I actually kind of can do this one now.
Yeah, I can definitely relate it to that. So when I just come to Canada, I couldn't speak proper English. So I felt super dumb in the beginning, and like I could speak like English for 2 hours in the very beginning. After that, it's like there's a battery in my head. Like
Oh, you got
so
tired,
good.
right?
2 hours?
Yeah, in the beginning. After 2 hours, like I'm dead. Like
I think it's more like the mental taxation of having to translate the language.
No,
into
I'm
Chinese,
saying
yeah.
2 hours is really good as somebody who like I'm taking Japanese, and I think my max limit of grade, not even a grade, I can't even say grade 1. I think we're at kindergarten. I think we are pre-pubescent, not even born yet level of Japanese, like so bad. I can speak for maybe 5 minutes, which I did. We had our oral test today, and the max was 5 minutes, and I was struggling by the end. So
Dang.
you are a genius, Charlie.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so like after that 2 hours, like I'm dead. But like, after that, I start to be able to speak longer and longer, and in the end, I can speak like for the entire day without a problem. But however, there's a lot of like specific context, specific situations. There's new words, there's new ways of using the language that I've never heard about. And like all those things makes me constantly feel like dumb because people understand that without any issue, but I couldn't. But like I don't even know at what time. At one point, I don't feel dumb. I forgot I feel dumb anymore, and I just talk normally. And the English has become, okay with me now. Yeah, then I started to learn French. It's a similar situation. But instead of freaking out, I start to realize it's just a normal phase of language speaking. I think for any study is kind of like that. Even for computer science, in the beginning, you have to remember a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's no other way around it.
No, that's actually very interesting because I think right now I just came to the realization because when we first started learning Dr. Racket, like you would be mentally exhausted just doing those basic pieces, and it's because it took you so much like energy to remember those whatever the syntax was and apply it. And it's the same thing as like learning a language. Like it's not natural for you to think in that manner, but then once you start thinking about it, it's like that's just how you start perceiving, or like it's more intuitive for you to work. So I think having the fortitude to really push past that moment when you're feeling weak, exhausted, it's going to really help you, progress in this degree and just keep going. And you won't be the only one who's struggling, right?
That's definitely true.
Oh, God, you are not the only one.
No matter how hard it feels, don't worry. You'll make it through.
And I think that's one thing that's kind of bad in today's society where no one really showcases their struggles or how hard it was. We just see the end result when they're on top. But that journey to get from the bottom up there, it really does require a lot of like resilience and like believing in yourself and not letting like those small whispers of doubt throw you off or make you think, you know what, I'm not smart enough to do this, or this isn't meant for me. Because it's the people that are almost delusional enough to think that we can do whatever we want. They're the ones that actually end up breaking through and achieving their goals, right?
That's true. I also want to, maybe it's a good time to talk about the courses that is going to come up in your first year in BCS. For example, many people are going to take CPSC 110 and CPSC 121. And they are definitely very important courses. And I want to start with CPSC 110 because it has an amazing supporting system.
Oh my God, 110.
The best, the biggest advocator of the course.
I just need to say, 110 was one of the few university courses that I've taken in both degrees where the amount of practice and incredible teaching assistants and incredible professors that you have access to is amazing. Like it is such, I personally feel like it is such a good intro to computer science for people who don't know computer science. And they teach it in a language called Dr. Racket, which I know is a point of contention. And some people are like, oh, it doesn't prepare us for anything. But I really like it because it does put everyone on the same playing field, because probably people aren't like studying Dr. Racket before they start the course. But the teaching assistants are amazing. Honestly, most of the course teaching, like of the other course teaching assistants, are incredible and they're so helpful. And the amount of teaching assistants who, I hope I can make somebody feel better, the amount of people who have seen me cry and have like a mental breakdown in these courses because I'm just going through it, because it is hard. Like this is a new thing that you're learning, and new things are hard and change is hard, and it's very normal. And I feel like they're probably like, you probably won't cry as much as I did, so don't you worry. Yeah. They will be like, you're not as bad as this girl. Yeah.
How about you tell us, how do you use the supporting system for 110?
How is
use
it?
The supporting system.
How do I use it? Yeah. Well, I would take myself to every single office hour, every single one. I recommend everybody do this for every single course. You just go, as Charlie already said this, you just go to the office hour and you sit there and you just start doing as many questions as humanly possible. Because there's so many practice questions that course has, which is great. But if you can, you just do these questions and you come and you get stuck, go ask a TA. Immediately go ask a TA. Like, try it. I will say, work on it for 15 minutes. But I've like recently come to the realization that it's just not worth suffering through something you genuinely have absolutely no idea how to do. And especially the 110 TAs, they're like literally trained to give you hints in a way where you will still get to the answer on your own. Like, they're not just going to tell you this is how you code it. they're going to make you realize you do know how to do it, but maybe like you needed to look at it in a different perspective. So I would just highly recommend ask TAs as many questions as you can. Ask questions in class, rewatch the lectures, but mainly, programming is such a hands-on practice that the main thing you need to do is just keep coding. Like you just have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And eventually you start to notice patterns and you start to realize how things just tend to be done. And it will become easier over time. But yeah, that beginning part is the roughest, and that's when the support is the most beneficial, is that you can go and you can ask and figure your stuff out. And don't be afraid to tell them, like, am I supposed to be awful at this? Like, I literally had to ask that so many times just so somebody could say, that is normal. Like, we honestly expect that. If you were already good at this, why are you in this course, you know? So highly, there's great stuff in 110.
So just a little bit of the context. So 110 is the first programming course for many people who they have never learned computer science before. And to give you the best support, 110 has a lot of TAs. Basically, it's like 5 days a week, almost any like working hours, you can at least find one TA sitting in an office hour. And what you need to do is just to drop in and bring your question to the TA. And the TAs are really, really amazing. And they will guide you to the answer instead of showing you what the answer is. Yeah, so that's by far the best supported course, I would say, in the first term, or maybe in the entire UBC term. I don't know, because after that, once you get a hand on how to program, you probably don't need like help every step of the way. So you don't care about the supporting system as much, but it's very important to go to office hours. But 110 can definitely help you out if you use the resources enough. The professor always says you paid for it, so ask your questions, reach out for help. And even if you don't know how to ask the right question, just go there, tell them where you are, what you have thought about, and that's already a very good start already.
I also want to say, like, I did that a lot in my last degree, where I used to just go to office hours, especially before exams, and I would just sit in there, and even if I didn't have questions, I would honestly just listen to other people's questions. And I just think that's a very, very, very helpful thing to do, mainly because if you go and there's a lot of people there and the prof starts noticing, or the TA starts noticing, wow, like 8 people have asked me the same question. Clearly, this topic was not explained clear enough, or maybe it's really hard to understand. So maybe I need to explain it in a different way. And I've had multiple instances in 110 and even in other upper year courses where when so many people go and or sometimes one person will ask a question and everyone else huddles around like, oh my God, I had that exact question. Like, I've had the prof go to the whiteboard and like speak to the entire class and address the entire class. And sometimes just reteach the whole thing, maybe with a different perspective or in a way where now people can ask questions and interject about the specific things they don't understand. So I know that it can be hard to go to office hours and it is a lot of time, but I really, really think it's helpful. And I just can't recommend it enough. It's also just really important to kind of get your networking going. And not to say like only go for networking, because these people legitimately are there to teach, but it's just really helpful to know other people in comp sci. So when you have other problems, you can be like, hey, do you know how to solve this? Or I know this person, he was a TA and he helped me out a lot. So you could possibly go to them for help. Like, I really think university, the whole purpose is that you need to get to know people so you have a support system for the future. Like, don't feel bad about that. I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So in general, it's not only about 110, it's also about 121 or 210 or many other courses coming along the way. How to make best use of the supporting system. So in UBC, we have all the courses have TAs. That's definitely true. And the TAs I met are super amazing. There's always office hours from the professor or the teaching assistant TAs. And make use of that. First of all, you can get your questions answered there. And secondly, there's a thing called trauma bonding. I learned it from Hidi, and I did that a lot. you travel about everywhere in the university. Just complain about the course, and you'll make a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Supporting system is very important because, as you might have guessed, like this course, it's hardly easy, but with support, you can definitely make it through. Yeah. So 110 is a course that gives you the introduction of the programming, and we also want to spend like a little time to talk about 121. This course is discrete mathematics. You will majorly like be exploring some like logical things like and or not, if, either, something like that. So this course will force you to rethink the language in a different perspective. When I'm speaking something, what does that actually mean? And that's the beginning part of it. And you will also be seeing how the electrical components actually mimic the logic of, real world problems. And this is like discrete mathematics. It's kind of theoretical, I would say. Many people don't see a direct link between what we learn in that course to what is actually used in the field, in the tech field. However, although it's not directly involved, it's definitely a very, very important fundamental for all the courses for you to succeed in this program. And I just want to spend like 1 minute to emphasize the importance of that. And how do you guys feel about that course? Did you guys struggle with this course? And what is your tips for students who are going to take this course?
So I think I kind of lucked out when I took 121 because in my previous degree, I actually took a couple of abstract mathematics and mathematical proof classes. So I was kind of familiar with what the expectations are. But what I found was kind of interesting was the fact that they're very rigid on how they like their questions answered. So someone like me who likes to do things by his own, like present it my own way and do with my own flair, it took me a lot of like humbling to be like, okay, gotta just answer the question, don't do anything spectacular or anything like that. I think another key thing that I've noticed for 121 and 110 and overall this course is that coming from a life sciences background, all of our assessments are usually factually based, right? So definitions, trends that you've observed, analyzing, interpreting data. But with computer science, this is an application-focused program, right? So it's not so much important that you understand the nitty-gritty details of the theory, but how well can you code? So there's like 2 steps you want to do. You want to first learn what you need to do, and you want to become proficient at it because exams are always timed. You have like an hour and a half, and you need to do all the questions in an hour and a half. So you want to practice first getting it right and then getting quick at it so that you have time to do it on the exam as well.
Yeah.
So I think once you change your perspective to that, it makes things a lot easier.
I would definitely say practice is the key to succeeding in 121. So I don't have a lot of trouble understand the content in the lecture, but when I am doing the assignment, I actually do get stuck from time to time. And my experience with 121 is that the questions you run into in the exam is one level of difficulty, and the questions you run into for the assignment and tutorial, there are different level of difficulty. So just finishing the assignment is not enough to like prepare you for good exam marks. But luckily, for my cohort, for my year, in the Canvas, they share the exam questions from previous years. So you actually need to go through those questions to get a hand of like how difficult or like how much do they expect you to how deep of an understanding do they expect you to have for the final exam for you to succeed in this exam. So yeah, definitely go through the previous year's questions, do some practice, and just with more practice you'll get a better like hand of how to solve question, because solving question requires a lot of skills, right? So that practice is definitely necessary.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I personally struggled a lot in 121. I think that type of content, like very theoretical heavy information, I'm not very good at naturally. For like I literally got into programming mainly because I enjoyed like front end and full stack development so much because I liked seeing what I was doing as I was doing it. Even back end, you get a little bit of like, because you have tests and whatnot, you can still know that your thing is working,
Yeah.
right? As you make it. But I think 121 was just very abstract for me, and it was a very big shift. So personally, I did struggle quite a bit, but I don't doubt its importance as a course. I will say 121 is the first foray you get into big O notation, which becomes huge for like
Interviews.
basic interviews and like everything from this point on. They do a little bit of it, but I still think that little bit is really helpful because a later course that you have to take is 221, CPSC 221, which is data structures and algorithms, which if you're watching this, you probably know because you know about computer science, is like essentially like the real heart and the meat of computer science, especially technical interviews. That's where you learn all the things that you're going to have to do on lead code. And knowing runtime, which is big O, it's really like the most important thing. Interviews will ask you about it. And it's just important to learn about, and it's nice that 121 gives you a little intro into it. And I think a lot of the little things they teach you in 121, like you may not think of it immediately, but you may realize that some of those like the gate stuff we learned about, the NOT gate, the NOR gate, all of that theoretical concepts can actually come up in programming or in system design and stuff like that. So it's really hard, and I think because so much of it is not done in a computer science context, I want to say, i.e. like they don't say you use a NOR gate when you do this, like in coding or whatnot. I get why it can be really hard because I'm just not, I need examples personally, but it's definitely like you can absolutely pass and you can get like a general understanding of the information. But I think that's just something to keep in mind, is that if you're struggling with it, it's not a unique experience. Like don't worry, like a lot of people I feel like either really get it or they really don't get it, and it just happens to be I think a difference in learning style. But it is important. So like if you can get the general gist of what's being taught, I think that's still really good and it's really helpful.
Yeah. I just want to add one last little thing in how to succeed in this course. We for 121 there is two kind of support systems. One is the tutorial, another one is the office hours. So like the office hours is not as frequent as 110 office hours. You can't see a TA at any time of the day, but there's a lot of tutorial sessions for 121, and the good thing about 121 tutorial is that you can attend a different tutorial than you are assigned. And for the first part of the tutorial, like so here will give you a set of questions and ask you to answer them. And you would probably spend like 30 minutes to figure out what the questions are, like what are your questions to ask to the TAs. But that first 30 to 40 minutes is sitting silence. I personally think if you are stuck with some questions, you can actually reach out to the TA to, like, ask for some support, ask for some help. And at the end of the class, the TA is going to talk specifically about the question he gave out to you in this specific session. And that is the time when you can actually learn how to solve the questions that you are expected to solve. Yeah, so this might be a useful tip as well. But in general, these two courses are very important, and I definitely encourage people to take that. If you can't pass the 110 challenge exam, then you 110 experience is also very, very important. Like, don't worry about it. It's actually a good deal to take. Yeah. And that's studying is just a part of the school. People also think about their like course selections, the degree planning. That's one thing, and they also want to know things outside of school. For example, co-op program. And this is definitely a very important topic because many of us, when we come to BCS, we have worked a few years already or expect to work as soon as possible. And co-op program is something that is very distinct for the BCS program. And people are wondering about the timelines, like what is it about? How is it like in the co-op program? And I think it's a good time to talk about that. Yeah. So, are you guys all in the co-op program?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, how do you guys feel about the co-op program for you so far?
So I actually was a late applicant to it
Mhm.
because I didn't complete some of the, because you have to have, I think, 110 and 121 completed to apply for co-op, right?
I think you need at least 110 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
I took 110 in my second semester, not the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I had to do the second round for co-op. So I actually got in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's a bit delayed. But then just to take a step back and recap, in a more, like a very traditional BCS structure, you would have take CPSC 110 in the first semester. You have the opportunity or the option to take CPSC 121 in the first or second. And then you would apply for co-op in the second semester, right? So that way the grades from your first semester kind of tie into your co-op application. And so then you apply for co-op, and then I think you hear back maybe around March or April. But before you're accepted, you have an interview with the co-op coordinator. And for our program, we actually have one coordinator, that's the general one for BCS. His name is Girish. And so then he sits down with you, he talks to you, he asks you, okay, like, tell me about your past, like, how did you come to this program? He checks out your resume, and then that's when the co-op training starts to bloom, like he starts to, first advice I've heard people get is about the resume, like, oh, add stuff to it, remove this, clean it up, make it look like this,
Mm-hmm.
And then the workshops start, and that's when you start getting more specific information on how to approach applications, how to do interview preps, stuff like that. And then that'll bring you into the summer. And then for a lot of us, we look to find a co-op job that starts in September. So then you spend that summer, you're getting kind of more and more familiar with the co-op applications and more workshops for you to polish your skills up. And then you're looking for a September start date or January start date, depending on what your requirements are. But then also you guys were in it from the first round, so feel free to add your own experiences, or if I misspoke, please correct me.
Yeah, in general, timeline-wise, it should be correct.
Yeah.
So basically, you send in your application in the October 1st of the first term.
Yeah.
And you hear back on the second term, and they will check your grade. You have to meet a minimum requirement, which is B-. That's like 68%.
Sorry, I don't think it's an actual number or like a letter grade. It's more the class average.
Yeah.
Gires just looks to see that you're at class average or above.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in the core computer science courses, i.e. 110 and 121, he just wants you to be at least like average. Like if you can be around the class average, then it's fine. But even if you're not, I have heard instances where like you maybe, I think this is even in regular co-op, it's the same thing. Like you can be put on probation where they wait for you to do your courses the next term. And then if you bring your marks up, they will accept you. But a lot of times, like obviously if your marks are lower, like it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't understand. Like there's so many different factors that can contribute to it. And I feel like they definitely understand that. And if you don't happen to make it the first round, like that's no problem. You can always reapply in the future. But yeah, like I think me and Charlie were two of the people who did the more traditional kind of timeline where we both did, I think we were both in 110 and 121 at the same time in semester 1, which was certainly an experience. And then and then semester 2 we took 210, which is the next level up.
Yeah.
And then we got to start looking for jobs in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, starting in May.
You hear back for your application on the winter term too, and most of the time you will get in. And once you get in, you will need to schedule like intake interview with Girish, which Bilal was talking about. You talk about your past experience, you talk about your expectations from the co-op program, and then you will go through a series of trainings on Canvas. So each week, Girish is going to book like a Zoom session with everyone and provide training on, for example, how to polish the resume, how to prepare for a technical interview, how to search for jobs, things like that. After this series of workshops, you will also you can like the mandatory part of the co-op program is done, and he still continues to give you support. Basically, you can book practice interviews with him and invite some friend over to join the technical interview and ask for his opinion about your resume. He's going to give you the support as much as possible to help you polish your profile.
Yeah.
And get you ready for the job application. And in summer term 1, you'll get invited to the online job board, something like that. We call it Scope. Once you get there, you'll see all the postings of active jobs. Yeah. And it's a really well curated term. Like it's updated very, very frequently. You get jobs from everywhere in Canada, even in US.
Oh, international jobs too. I was looking the other day.
Yeah.
They had like Hong Kong opportunities and stuff. So
okay. Yeah. Bilal is right about that. So you can find a lot of opportunities fresh on the website, and you can start to apply for those jobs as soon as possible. The thing I like about the co-op program is that, first of all, it got a lot of opportunities. Not only the job like everywhere in the world, it's also there. You can also find some job that is exclusively in the co-op program. So you have a little bit more options than you would find on Indeed or other platforms.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something. The support system is very important. And another very, very important thing about the co-op program is that you get to keep your full-time student status when you do your co-op program. So that has a lot of implications. For example, first of all, student loans. If you're on student loans, co-op program can help you keep getting student loans. And on top of that, for people who wants to do an internship in the United States, they have a visa, and some visa require you to be a full-time student in the term before you come to their company. And if you did a co-op outside of the co-op program, you will lose your full-time student status. Then you will have to delay by another term before you can go to US. So that's something that is often overlooked by people, but it's actually important to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in general, a co-op program has such a timeline that, you can start to look for a job as soon as you are ready, because most of us get finished with CPSC 221, which is the data structure course in summer term 1. When you finish that, you are ready to look for jobs. And at that time, co-op lets you find the jobs as well.
Yeah.
So, so it's a good supporting system. Yeah, definitely.
And in terms of the resume, I found that in the beginning it was definitely hard, to get any sort of pull from a company, but that is completely normal. If anything, it's really helpful to just apply, because yes, we hear the thing of, well, when you apply, it's possible if you think you won't get it, you'll still get it. But I think on top of that, applying helps for you to figure out whether or not your resume may need a little something else. Because if you've applied to 50 jobs, and I mean, to be fair, at this point, 50 is the minimum to maybe get one interview. But, if you've applied to 50 or especially 100 and you haven't heard back, I would probably take a step back and possibly go talk to Garish and be like, hey, I feel like maybe something's wrong with my resume. So it's also just helpful to give yourself an idea of maybe, is there a project I need to work on, or is there something else I need to do? One of the things that's really, 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 really recommended to start doing, at least, if not in first term, because I know it can be a little scary, in second term, is hackathons and game jams and all these events that you've probably heard of, but you've never gone to. But they're super fun, and they're literally these events where you get to work on a project and have something physical to put on your resume, and you can always polish it up later and make it look a lot nicer. But it is probably the the easiest and one of the best ways, and something that apparently a lot of recruiters like to see, because hackathons are something that require teamwork. You're usually working in teams, and you have like a very tight deadline, and you're often learning like a completely new tech stack in 24 hours, which is nothing. Or you're learning like some new things here and there, but it shows that you're really good at kind of thinking quick on your feet and adapting. Like, how many times have I started a hackathon project and about 4 hours and we're like, this is not working. Like, this
and
this
trauma
ain't it.
bonding.
Yeah, and trauma bonding. How many people do you see crying and sleep deprived and drinking like 27 energy drinks at a hackathon? But it's a really, really fun experience. Like, I so highly recommend people in BCS go to hackathons. BCS has its own hackathon, which we hosted. Like, the execs host it I believe it's like March. So you will get, like, I highly recommend to try and apply to the BCS hackathon and game jams if you like video games and like to make video games, which is essentially a hackathon, but where you make a video game in a period of time. They're just really great experiences where you can meet people and test out your skills and just have fun. Like, I could make a whole podcast of the experience of one of our game jams, because there was just so much that happened. And it's truly a story for the ages.
Yeah.
But it's really fun. So that's just something really helpful to put on your resume that will probably help out a lot with getting interviews.
Do you get sick in the game jam?
Yes, I somehow ate a pizza that did not have, it didn't say it had nuts anywhere, but somehow I have a nut allergy, and I'm pretty sure it must have had walnuts, because that's my worst one. And I threw up in the bathroom 4 times in the game jam.
No, yeah.
And but our game was fun.
Well, hackathons are generally stressful, but normally not that crazy.
No.
Yeah, you won't be throwing. You won't be. You won't be throwing
We
up
are
in the
bonding
toilet
over
or anything.
traumas, but probably not that bad. At least in BCS hacks, the hackathon that we organized, we didn't have this kind of issues with the food. I didn't
thank
hear
God.
any complaint about that.
We were very careful with the allergies. I was very careful. I think because of my experience, I was like, guys, you just need to label
True.
everything.
We can't
because
emphasize that enough.
I
And
know.
also, I was in the food industry. I also
Exactly.
paid a lot of attention on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's mainly the trauma bonding. It's mainly the trauma bonding comes from the fact that none of you know how the heck you're supposed to make this thing come together. And I remember, this is just an anecdote, but our very first hackathon that I ever went to, we were struggling with Git and GitHub. Like, we could not figure out
I know.
how to
I
push
feel the
and
same.
pull.
I feel the same.
And we were like, it's because we were like, I know what to do. Let's build the entire back end and then the entire front end on 2 separate like GitHub things, and then we'll smash them together.
Oh shit.
And that's not how you're supposed to run. Because GitHub's gonna be like, no,
Yeah.
that is not allowed. And at one point, we started using like essentially a Word doc, like a Google Doc, but for code, where you can have, you have multiple people code at the same time. But what happened is you just had all of us screaming at each other, being like, who touched the code? Because suddenly, like, all our tests would break and we didn't know who touched it, this is why you use
okay.
GitHub, by the way. But yeah, so we had like such a horrific experience in that one because we didn't know how to use GitHub, which, by the way, probably the most, like, when GitHub is equivalent to Excel in the sense that when people say, I know Excel, there's like a proper way to know Excel and there's I know Excel. So GitHub is like, I know GitHub. I do courses where we get assignments from GitHub. But then when you do a hackathon, like, that's your knowing GitHub. That's your actually figuring out how to push, how to pull, how to solve the things when it says that you have a detached head and you don't know what that means. And you're like, what? And if you don't fix it, you could break your entire
What's
project.
a branch? What's a checkout?
So
Why am I 14 commitments behind? What did I even
literally,
mean?
why can't I get the most up-to-date commitment? What
Yeah.
is happening?
What is a conflict? Why am I conflicting with myself?
It was so bad. I think our second hackathon, one of my group members was actually about to cry because it was an hour before the deadline and we had some GitHub issue and all the code was like on her, I think, branch. And it was such a mess. But we fixed it. It was fine. But it was actually the worst time. GitHub is, But like, again, our recruiters know this. So when they see that you've done a hackathon, they're like, no, these people actually know Git. Or at least they tried.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Trauma bonding is like an important part of hackathon, but there's a lot of more to that. You know, we've got great food for the
Oh
hackathons.
my god, the food's so good.
Like free pizza, free
okay.
breakfast.
We had great food because we had great sponsors for the hackathon. Because Axiom Zen, they've been sponsoring BCS Hacks for easily 7+ years. And they've always been very generous and they're very accommodating. And they give us enough funds to secure 3 meals for the hackers. So we are able to feed you dinner,
Thank you,
lunch,
Axiom Zen.
and dinner again or something. So yeah, Axiom Zen, you guys are our rock.
Yeah.
When us BCS students are trying to figure out how to code and learn how to work together in a team.
But for other hackathons, they also have their sponsors and they have their pizzas and the equivalents of pizzas.
Yeah.
So
And lots of snacks. Lots of snacks. Lots of Red Bull.
yeah, for free.
Yes.
Like almost all the hackathons I participated, the food are free.
Yeah.
Just to feel your coding spree, you know.
Yeah.
You just need to sign up over there. Learn the things on the fly. There's also like TAs or mentors over there to help you get your code like launched. And there's also food there to support you to learn everything and make something with your friend.
Yeah.
I recently had a resume review with a mentor I met in one hackathon actually. And he looked at my resume and he told me, hey, Charlie, you gotta work on your resume. You don't have a lot of personal projects. Like all the projects you have on your resume are like academic. Like everyone have that thing on the project. So it's almost always the same thing over and over again. I'm sick of that. If you want to stand out, you have to make your personal project.
Yeah.
Where do you get your personal project? With your friends in hackathons, because as Haley said, the hackathon is just 24 hours, and you have to make something that is really, really interesting, that flies. And, you will be like, talk to a lot of friends, brainstorming for interesting idea, and see other people's idea. That's also very important. Once you see that, you will figure out 2 things. First of all, what is an interesting project that is going to win the race? That is your personal touch. And another thing is that what technology, what language, what kind of framework do I need to learn to make that happen? And that's also very important things that employers will pay attention to. Most of the time, if you finish the hackathon and if you win a prize, that implies that you have finished your project. That implies you have a unique idea. That implies that you actually have a fairly good understanding of the technology that is used in the industry. And all these things are like enough for employer to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
So hackathon is definitely a very important thing to attend.
Even if you don't win though, like Charlie said, just having the fact that you participated in a hackathon, like it's a big event. Like it is 24 hours. You go there morning to night, and not even tonight. Sorry, morning to the next day, and
morning to morning,
and it is, while the tech stack is definitely important, I think one of the things that you don't get as much experience with is coding in a group setting. Like, again, I think it comes back to, like, the learning how to do this with other people. Because I think there's a stereotype that coding, the person who's doing software development sits alone in a dark room by themselves on their computer. And it's like, okay, well, maybe they're by themselves in the room, but I can promise you there's, like, 27 other people on, like, a call with them being like, sir, the head is detached from GitHub. I don't know what to do. And you are working together. You all have little snippets of code that you need to work on. And in hackathons as well, like it's really, really important because you work with people who, it's not necessarily everyone's a programmer. You also work with the designers. Like usually in the hackathons, I'm actually like the front end designer. I'm usually doing the UX UI. Just because it's what I enjoy and also nobody else wants to do it. But I have a lot of fun with it. And you learn, especially with our last hackathon, how to take something that somebody has made in Figma, which is like a common UI design tool, and actually implement it into your project. Because it's not as easy as like, I'm just going to copy paste it there's actually, and then there's a lot of things that as the designer you will make, and then the programmer's like, I have no idea how to implement this. So it's a lot of learning how to work with the different people involved in the software development industry. And then you work with somebody who's doing the back end and somebody who's doing the front end, and all these things. And it teaches you how to work with not only other programmers, but other areas completely, and you don't usually get that experience. So that's also something to just keep in mind, and something you can kind of highlight in your resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, hackathon is definitely one of the things like I recommend people to do in their first year. It also helps you to make friends. I guess that is very obvious at this point already. And beside hackathon, school, applying for jobs, that's already a lot of things. There's also a few other important things I think for BCS students to do. One thing Heidi has mentioned already, but I just want to put a stress on it, that is workout. Keep your physical health. Because as programmers or programmers to be, we spend a lot of time in front of the computer. We spend our time in a virtual world. But, after doing this for like a few months, I start to realize that it's not sustainable just to sit in front of the desk all day. I get anxiety, I get burnt out, I get a lot of health issues generally. And
I just got fat.
You just got fat. That too. Definitely. I put on a few pounds, definitely. So that's why I started swimming. Again, like during the pandemic, I was in a similar situation. I was isolated, but the swimming pool was open, and that's why when I started to work out over there. And every time I finish swimming, I feel amazing. And after doing this BCS program, I feel similar to what I had before, and I started swimming, and that really helps me a lot. And Bilal, he's a bodybuilder. He goes to the gym, he works out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the overall message is it doesn't have to be like what we're suggesting, just whatever physical activity you enjoy doing, right? So like Hetty mentioned, she enjoys badminton. It's great for her to play and enjoy. We're doing the social for that. Charlie's into swimming. Yeah, I like lifting weights. I'm more of a meathead that way. But once you come to this school, you'll see that Vancouver is such a beautiful city. The campus is so stunning. You could literally just make your workout walking up and down campus.
Yeah.
You can go to one end, you can see the sea, the sunsets and everything. You go to the other end, you see Vancouver itself, all the big tower sky rises and stuff. So there's a lot of ways to just be active, but we recommend trying to incorporate it, a couple of times a week. Just do something, loosen your muscles up, stay nice and active. Otherwise, you'll start to notice, you're getting these back aches, you don't feel as energetic as you did before. And even sleeping wise, right? Because coding is a mentally taxing task, but if you're not physically tired, you might find days where you're mentally drained, you can't focus on anything in front of you, but your body doesn't want to sleep as well. So that's when it helps, and I often do that too sometimes. It'll be 10 o'clock at night. I'm not physically tired, so I'll go for a nice walk throughout the campus and, just kind of calm yourself down so then you can go and sleep and have a refreshing start the next day.
That's definitely true. And UBC is a great school in terms of that because it has a very nice campus, and there's a lot of programs and events that to keep people active. So, for example, swimming pool in UBC is actually free to UBC students, in case you didn't know that.
Yeah.
And there's also two big gyms in UBC, the Arc Gym and the Bird Coop. These two gyms use the same membership system, and the membership fee is actually fairly cheap.
It's $42 a semester.
For this semester.
For the gym.
Yeah.
I personally like the exercise classes. The exercise classes are a bit more expensive. I think they're $80.
Yeah, but it's still fairly cheap
Yeah,
compared
per
to
semester.
other public.
Oh, it's so cheap. No,
commercial
compared to
programs.
Yeah.
and every day they have all these different things you can do. I think you can do spin classes, yoga, Pilates, HIIT workouts. I've gone to I think at least one of every one of them.
Yeah.
And they're really, really fun. They are a great way to stay active. When Bilal was saying you'll be walking around, like you can walk as an exercise, I wanted to say like you will not have a choice. You're gonna walk around
Well,
a
get a
lot.
bike, get
No,
a
I've been
scooter.
hitting 10,000 steps like every time.
I tend to
know, me
hit
too.
10,000
Same
steps
here,
like
same
most
here.
days.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about the walking. But personally, I really enjoy the yoga classes. I feel like I just need something calming. Please have a hobby that is not coding.
Digital? Yeah.
That is not like I know it's fun, but I really, 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 really recommend doing something where you're not necessarily staring at a screen, or if you are, maybe you're drawing, maybe you're doing literally anything other than like coding, just because I really think doing something else is so necessary for your brain to have a
Yeah.
break. And because mental health is real, it's real, and in this program it's hella real. And it is hard, like it's not easy, so it's very easy to kind of start to spiral and be like, oh my god, and how many times have I done that? I can't even count. But you can get back yourself kind of back on the driver's seat, and sometimes you just need to step away. And you just need to do something else, or like maybe go for a walk, or go, I don't know, like play a little game, or like draw something, or do literally anything else.
Yeah. So Hedy was talking about having a hobby, basically having something to switch your mind to keep your mental health. And there's much more to do, and we'll talk about that in the next session. Thanks so much for staying in tune. And we it's a series of podcasts, and this is the first episode. We will invite more people to talk about their lives, their experience, and their feelings about BCS programs. And if you're interested, send us a message, and we can schedule you in another session. And thank you so much for coming, and see you guys next time.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.